My name is Haya Al-Dejani, and I'm currently a lecturer in entrepreneurship and small business management at the University of East Anglia in Norwich, and I'm also the chair of the Women Research and Enterprise Forum there. In terms of practical work, when I finished my studies, my MSc from Bath University, I went back to Jordan, which is my native country, and worked for a variety of international and local agencies, very much focused on women's development. And I was a freelancer, and then discovered an opportunity to set up my own business with a colleague of mine, a friend as well, and we set up the first private sector organization at that time, and it was called the Middle East Center for Human Studies, and we primarily served the women-led non-profit organizations in providing research and training and consultancy services. And it was really as a result of my work with that center that I discovered the extent to which women's enterprise is highly linked with women's development. And it was that then took me back to my PhD work at Strathclyde, and from then continued with my academic career. I think that women's enterprise is a catalyst for women's economic development as well as women's social development. It's very much an empowerment enabler for women, and as we all know, if you are able to empower women, it's one way of empowering their families and communities as well. So there is this knock-on effect. And enterprise, or engaging with enterprise, I think is a sustainable way of achieving those goals. It also creates opportunities for leadership in environments where qualities like leadership for women are not encouraged. And it also offers opportunities for creativity, and in many cases it also provides opportunities for survival, especially when you're looking at communities of women that are very much marginalized and excluded from the mainstream. A lot of my research deals with developing economies, so I'm looking at women from displaced backgrounds or migrants and so on. If we look at it at a local level first, and going back to what I was saying about enterprise being a catalyst for development, at the local level there's definitely a potential for growth in terms of socioeconomic growth, and most likely with business support agencies supporting the local entrepreneurs, we see the results immediately. And the impact that has on the communities of those individuals. But if you take that to a more regional or a national and international level, there is definitely an impact. And we see that through women's organizations that are sprouting out, either at the grassroots level or at policy level or academic circles, and the networks that are created and the opportunities that arise and the creativity that comes forward with it. In terms of future potential, there is definitely a lot of scope, again, looking at developing economies where there's still a lot of work to be done. Still, we don't see systems in place for supporting women's enterprise as we do here or elsewhere in Europe and the States. Just because they're not there doesn't mean they're not important. Quite the contrary. There is a need for them to develop, but there's a need for them to develop in culturally appropriate ways for those communities. I think it's a totally wicked idea. I think it's brilliant. It is definitely a first in the world, and also very much needed. Sometimes you get organizations that are keen on being the first, on being the pioneers, but without a clear agenda or a clear need. That's definitely not the case with WICED. I think the potential for it as an international center for women's economic development are massive. the support that it's going to receive and that it has already received, I think, it endorses that point on the fact that it will be a success. And maybe one of the indicators of its success will be the partnerships that will be created between women across the global network. I think it will work at three different levels. One which will very much be the grassroots level, which are the real people, the real entrepreneurs, I should say. And if we are in a position where we can enhance the dialogue between the women entrepreneurs in different parts of the world, then I think we've already achieved success. I know a lot of these sort of global networks now happen virtually by using the internet and the web and so on, which is fine, but I am also a keen believer in the face-to-face. Maybe old-fashioned, but I think it has its merits, it has its advantages. On another level, I also think it will work in terms of sharing the expertise for supporting the supporters or the enablers of women's enterprise. Because these functions are very much in place in places like Liverpool and other places evidently in the UK, Europe, and the US and so on, and they're not in other parts of the world. Being able to be in a position where you can assist or empower such systems to be developed in other parts of the world, I think will also be another measure of success. And lastly, but definitely by no means least, I think the only way forward is by improving our knowledge levels and our shared knowledge, and that will happen through collaborative research, because the research will inform models and frameworks and processes on how to support and enhance women's enterprise to its full potential. And if we can do that through cross-cultural and cross-national joint ventures, then that can only be for everybody's benefit. Having practitioners and policymakers and academics, female practitioners, policymakers and academics, all sat around the same table talking about the development of an international centre for women's economic development shows the extent to which the partnerships between these different stakeholders are crucial. Yes, women's entrepreneurship is an academic discipline. Yes, it is an area that is applied in practice, and yes, it's an area that's applied in policy. But it is by bringing these three different stakeholders together that you really enrich the strategy and the agenda that you can take forward, rather than have the three different entities approaching it separately. Yeah, the fact that it's taking off in a global recession is a very good indicator of how successful it's going to be, because in such difficult economic times, the needs that arise are increased greatly, not just in Liverpool but everywhere, and therefore the services that it can offer will be more and more needed in the immediate future. You know, it's really a great honor to have the opportunity to be on this panel and to contribute to it and to learn from it too.